Commander Zexithara stood on the bridge of the warship Eternal Dominion, watching the stars bend and twist outside the massive windows. His crystalline body caught the light from 1,000 suns, creating rainbow patterns across the metal floor. For over 10,000 years, his people had ruled the galaxy. No one could stop them. No one had even tried for the last 3,000 years. The Valdrath Empire stretched across millions of worlds. Every planet they found either joined them or died. It was simple. It was clean. It worked. Zexithara's second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krellnex, approached with careful steps. The sound of his crystal feet on metal echoed through the quiet bridge. "Commander, we are approaching Sector 7739. The scans show a small system with 9 planets. One has life." "Tell me about this life," Zexithara said without turning around. He had heard this report thousands of times before on thousands of different worlds. Krellnex looked at his datapad. The light from the screen reflected off his face, making his crystal skin glow blue. "The species calls itself human. They live on the 3rd planet from their star. They call it Earth. The planet has water, land, and breathable air. The humans are mammals. They walk on 2 legs, they have soft skin and no natural armor." "Weapons?" Zexithara asked. "Primitive. They use metal projectiles and simple energy weapons. They have nuclear bombs, but these are very weak compared to our technology. They just learned how to travel faster than light about 50 of their years ago. Their fastest ships would take decades to cross their own small system." Zexithara finally turned around. His eyes glowed with a cold light. "Population? About 8 billion humans on their homeworld. Small colonies on 2 other planets in their system. Maybe another 1,000,000 humans total. Any psychic abilities?" Krellnex shook his head. "None detected. They seem completely unable to use mind powers. They cannot even sense our presence when we probe their thoughts." This was even easier than usual. Zexithara had seen species like this before. Weak bodies, weak minds, weak weapons. They would surrender before the first shot was fired. Most of them did. "How long since they achieved spaceflight?" he asked. "Less than 100 of their years. They are very new to traveling between stars." Zexithara nodded. Baby species were the easiest to deal with. They had not learned to be truly dangerous yet. They still thought the universe was safe and friendly. The Valdrath had taught millions of species that this was not true. "Open a channel to the fleet," Zexithara commanded. The communication officer, a young Valdrath named Yeltara, pressed several crystals on her control panel. "All ships are ready to receive your orders, Commander." "This is Commander Zexithara to all ships of Battle Group 7. We are about to encounter another primitive species. Standard conquest protocol will be followed. First, we will announce our presence and give them the choice to surrender. If they refuse, we will demonstrate our power by destroying one of their military installations. Then we will give them the choice again. If they still refuse, we will begin systematic destruction of their cities until they surrender." He paused, looking out at the 50 massive warships that surrounded his flagship. Each ship could destroy a planet. Together they had conquered star systems. "Remember," he continued, "we are not here to destroy everything. We are here to add another species to our empire. Dead slaves are worthless. We want them alive and working for us." Questions? No one spoke. This was routine. Every Valdrath in the fleet had done this dozens of times. "Excellent. Begin approach to the human system. Maintain battle formation. Charge all weapons but do not target anything yet. We will give them a chance to be reasonable." The fleet moved forward like a school of metal fish swimming through space. Each ship was over a mile long and covered in weapons. They had shields that could stop any attack. They had armor that could survive flying through a star. They had weapons that could crack planets in half. As they flew toward the human system, Zexithara thought about his long life. He had been alive for over 2,000 years. He had conquered 47 different species. Some had tried to fight. Most had surrendered immediately when they saw the Valdrath war fleet. The smart ones always surrendered. "Commander," called the sensor officer. "We are detecting human military ships moving toward us." Zexathara was mildly surprised. Most species tried to hide when they saw a Valdrath fleet. These humans were actually approaching them. Either they were very brave or very stupid. Probably stupid. "How many ships?" 12, Commander. They are very small. Each one is maybe 1/10 the size of our smallest escort ship. Zexathara almost laughed. 12 tiny ships against 50 massive warships. The humans must not understand what they were facing. "Are they targeting us?" "Yes, Commander, their weapons are aimed at our fleet." Now Zexathara did laugh. The sound was like breaking glass. "They think they can fight us. How amusing. Open a channel to their lead ship." A moment later, the communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Commander." "Unknown ships, this is Commander Zexathara of the Valdrath Empire. You are approaching a military fleet of the Galactic government. Turn your ships around and return to your homeworld immediately. Any aggressive action will be met with total destruction." The response came back quickly, a human voice speaking in their primitive language. The ship's computer translated it instantly. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered human space without permission. State your business or leave immediately." The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell silent. In all of Zexathara's long life, no primitive species had ever ordered him to leave. They begged. They offered tribute. They asked for mercy. They did not give orders. "Repeat that transmission," Zexathara said slowly. "This is Admiral Chen. You are trespassing in human territory. Leave now, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Zexathara's crystal skin began to glow brighter as his anger grew. "Do they understand what they are facing?" he asked his crew. "Our scanners show they are studying our ships very carefully," reported the sensor officer. "They are using every kind of detection equipment they have." "And they still refuse to retreat?" "Yes, Commander. In fact, more human ships are approaching. We now detect 37 human vessels moving toward us." This was new. Usually, when primitive species saw how outgunned they were, they either ran away or surrendered immediately. These humans seemed to be calling for reinforcements. "Commander," Krelnik said quietly, "perhaps we should follow standard procedure. Make the formal announcement and give them the opportunity to surrender properly." Zexathara nodded. "Open a channel to their homeworld. Make sure every human can hear this message." "Channel open, Commander. Broadcasting on all human frequencies." Zexathara stood up straight, his crystal body reflecting the light from 1,000 stars. His voice carried the authority of 10,000 years of conquest. "People of Earth, this is Commander Zexathara of the Valdrath Empire. Your world has been selected for incorporation into our galactic government. You have 2 of your days to surrender unconditionally. All military forces must stand down. All government leaders must present themselves for processing. All weapons must be turned over to Valdrath forces." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "If you comply, your people will be treated well as subjects of the Empire. You will be given work, food, and shelter. Your children will be educated in proper civilized behavior. You will have peace." Another pause. "If you refuse to surrender, your military will be destroyed. Your cities will be bombed until you change your mind. Your people will suffer greatly. This suffering is unnecessary. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Now came the waiting. Usually primitive species needed a few hours to argue among themselves before they accepted reality. But the response came back immediately. It was laughter. Pure human laughter filled the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. Then a voice, still, chuckling. "Commander Zex, whatever your name is, this is Admiral Chen again. Thanks for the comedy show. Here's our answer. Go home." The laughter continued for several more seconds, then the channel went dead. Zexathara stared at the communication panel in shock. In 10,000 years of Valdrath expansion, no species had ever laughed at them. "Commander," the sensor officer said, his voice uncertain, "more human ships are arriving. We now count over 100 vessels approaching our position." For the first time in his very long life, Commander Zexithara felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. Commander Zexithara had decided to teach the humans a lesson. After their rude response, he ordered his fleet to begin the standard psychological attack. The Valdrath had perfected this technique over thousands of years. They would send terrible visions directly into the minds of their enemies. Fear, pain, and hopelessness would flood their thoughts until they begged for mercy. Begin the mind assault, Zexithara commanded. Target all population centers on their homeworld. Show them what happens to species that do not respect the Empire. The psychic officers on every Valdrath ship focused, their mental powers toward Earth. Waves of crushing fear and terrifying. Images shot through space at the speed of thought. Every human on the planet should have been screaming in terror within minutes. But something strange happened instead. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her laboratory at the Global Defense Research Center, staring at the readings on her computer screen. She was not the same Sarah Chen who commanded the space fleet. That was Admiral Sarah Chen, her sister. Dr. Chen studied brains and how they worked. This is impossible, she whispered to herself. The Valdrath mental attack had started 10 minutes ago. Her instruments had detected the psychic energy hitting Earth like invisible lightning. But instead of terror and chaos, something else was happening. Her phone rang. It was her research partner, Dr. James Park. Sarah, are you seeing this? James sounded excited, not scared. The psychic attack? Yes, my equipment is picking up massive mental energy directed at the planet. But look at the brain scans from our test subjects, the people who volunteered to wear the neural monitors during the attack. Sarah pulled up the brain scans on her computer. What she saw made her gasp. The human brains were not being destroyed by the Valdrath attack. Instead, they were adapting. The chaotic, messy way human brains worked was actually protecting them from the organized Valdrath mental assault. James, this is incredible. The Valdrath psychic attack is like a computer virus trying to infect a creative artist's mind. Our brains are too random, too creative for their structured mental attacks to work properly. Even better, James said. Some of our subjects are starting to understand how the attack works. Lisa Martinez in Test Group 3 says she can feel the patterns in the psychic energy. She thinks she knows how to block it completely. Sarah grabbed her keys and ran for her car. She had to get to the main laboratory immediately. Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, Commander Zexithara was becoming worried. His psychic officers reported that the mental attack was having no effect. Worse, some humans seemed to be studying the attack instead of being destroyed by it. This is not possible, Sub-Commander Krelnek said, reading the reports. No species has ever resisted our mind attacks. The primitive ones usually go insane within the first few minutes. Perhaps their brains are too simple to be affected, suggested the chief psychic officer, a tall Valdrath named Mordeth. Maybe they are too stupid to understand fear. But that explanation did not satisfy Zexithara. He had seen the human ships. They were crude but functional. The humans had built them, which meant they were intelligent enough to understand technology. So why were their minds not breaking under the psychic assault? Double the intensity of the attack, he ordered. The Valdrath fleet focused even more mental energy toward Earth. The psychic bombardment was now strong enough to drive an entire planet insane. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen arrived at the main laboratory to find organized chaos. Scientists, doctors, and volunteers were working together to understand what was happening to their minds. Instead of cowering in fear, humans were doing what they did best, trying to figure out how things worked. Sarah called Dr. Martinez, one of the test subjects. I think I understand their system. The alien mind attack uses very organized patterns. It tries to force our brains to think in straight lines. But human brains don't work that way. We think in circles and spirals and random jumps. Their attack cannot control minds that refuse to think in an organized way. Dr. Park ran over with a tablet full of data. It gets better. Not only are we resisting their attack, but some people are learning to reverse it. Watch this. He showed Sarah a video of test subject Marcus Rivera, a music teacher from Detroit. Marcus was wearing a neural monitor and sitting very still with his eyes closed. Marcus, said a voice on the video, can you feel the alien mental attack? Yes, Marcus replied calmly. It feels like someone is trying to force my mind to march in a straight line. But I am pushing back. I am sending them my thoughts of jazz music. Random, creative, impossible to predict. On the computer screen, Sarah could see Marcus's brain patterns. They were wild and chaotic, but in a beautiful way, like music made visible. Now watch what happens when he pushes back harder, Dr. Park said. In the video, Marcus opened his eyes and smiled. I think I just confused one of their psychic officers. I sent him my memory of my daughter's first steps. He was not expecting love and joy. His mental attack stopped for a few seconds. Sarah stared at the screen. You mean we can fight back? Better than that, said Dr. Martinez. We can overwhelm them. Their minds are too organized, too rigid. If we flood them with human emotions, human creativity, human chaos, their brains might not be able to handle it. Word of the discovery spread quickly through Earth's defense network. Within hours, humans around the world were not just resisting the Valdrath mental attack, but learning to turn it against their enemies. In space, the Valdrath fleet was experiencing something that had never happened in their 10,000-year history. Their psychic officers were getting headaches. Commander, Mordeth reported, his crystal face showing pain. Something is wrong. The humans are not just resisting our mind attack. They are attacking us back. What do you mean? Sexthara demanded. I cannot explain it properly. Their thoughts are like storms, chaotic and wild. When I try to send them fear, they send me back something called music and laughter and love for their children. These concepts are disrupting my mental focus. Another psychic officer stumbled over to the commander. Sir, I tried to show a human female a vision of her planet burning. Instead, she somehow sent me her memory of baking cookies with her grandmother. The experience was so warm and confusing that I could not maintain the attack. Zexathara felt a chill run through his crystal spine. Are you telling me that these primitive beings are defeating our psychic assault with their emotions? It is worse than that, Commander, Mordeth said weakly. I think they are learning how our mental powers work. Every minute they resist our attack, they understand it better. Some of them are starting to copy our techniques. On Earth, Dr. Chen was now working directly with Admiral Chen and the military leadership. The sisters had set up a communication link between the research laboratories and the space fleet. Sarah, Admiral Chen said through the video link, our ships are still badly outnumbered. We need more than just psychic resistance. Can your people figure out anything else about these aliens? Dr. Chen smiled. Actually, yes. We have learned several important things. First, their psychic powers seem to be their main weapon. They expected to break our minds before any real fighting started. Second, their mental attacks are very organized and predictable. They think in patterns. Third, they seem to have never encountered a species that could resist their mind control. What does that mean for us? Asked the Admiral. It means they have probably never had to develop backup plans. For 10,000 years, they have won every fight by destroying their enemies' minds before the shooting started. They might not know how to fight a real war. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Then we are about to give them a very unpleasant education. Meanwhile, Commander Zexathara was facing a crisis he had never imagined. His most powerful weapon was not just failing. It was being turned against his own forces. Several of his psychic officers were now lying in the medical bay, overwhelmed by human emotions they could not understand or control. Sir, Subcommander Krelnex reported, the humans have stopped trying to negotiate. Their fleet is moving toward us in an attack formation. Zexthara looked out at the approaching human ships. They were still tiny compared to his massive war vessels, but for the first time in his long life he was not certain of victory. Prepare the energy weapons, he commanded. If we cannot break their minds, we will destroy their ships the old-fashioned way. But as the Valdrath fleet powered up their weapons, they received another transmission from the humans. This time it was not laughter, it was singing. Thousands of human voices singing together in perfect harmony. The song had no words that the Valdrath could understand, but the emotion behind it was unmistakable. It spoke of courage, hope, and determination. It spoke of a species that would not give up no matter how badly outnumbered they were. The song filled the bridge of every Valdrath ship. For many of the alien warriors, it was the first time they had ever heard music, and despite themselves, they found it beautiful. Commander Zexathara realized with growing horror that this war was not going to be like any other war in Valdrath history. These humans were going to fight back. The first real battle began 3 hours after the humans started singing. Commander Zexathara had ordered his fleet to attack the approaching human ships with energy weapons. The Valdrath had used these same weapons to destroy countless enemy fleets over the centuries. The beams could melt through any known armor and turn entire ships into glowing metal clouds. But when the Valdrath fired, something unexpected happened. The human ships did not try to dodge the energy beams. Instead, they flew straight into them. "What are they doing?" Subcommander Krelnex asked, watching the tactical display. "Are they trying to commit suicide?" "No," Zexthera said slowly, studying the sensor readings. "Look at their shields. The human ships had energy barriers around them, just like Valdrath vessels. But these shields were different. Instead of trying to absorb or deflect the Valdrath energy weapons, they seemed to be redirecting them." On the human flagship, Admiral Sarah Chen watched her tactical officer with satisfaction. "Report, Lieutenant Kumar. The enemy energy weapons are having minimal effect, Admiral. Our new shield modifications are working perfectly." Admiral Chen smiled. Her sister, Dr. Sarah Chen, had worked with the engineering teams for 2 solid days to understand how Valdrath weapons functioned. The breakthrough had come when they realized that Valdrath technology was incredibly advanced, but also incredibly predictable. Like their minds, their weapons followed very organized patterns. The alien energy beams all use the same frequency, Dr. Chen had explained to the military engineers. They have probably used these same weapon patterns for thousands of years. Why change something that always works? But if we can predict the frequency, we can build shields that redirect the energy instead of trying to stop it. Engineer Marcus Rivera had been the first to understand what she meant. "Like a mirror for energy beams," he had said. "We cannot stop their weapons, but we can bounce them back where they came from." Now, as the battle raged in space, the human fleet was doing exactly that. Valdrath energy beams struck human ships and bounced back toward the Valdrath fleet. The aliens found themselves being attacked by their own weapons. "Impossible!" Mordeth, the chief psychic officer, exclaimed on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. "How can primitive beings understand our technology so quickly?" Zexthara did not answer. He was too busy trying to understand what he was seeing. In the 3 hours since the fighting began, the humans had not just survived his attacks. They had studied them, figured out how they worked, and built defenses against them. "Commander," the weapons officer reported, "the humans are firing back at us now." "With what weapons?" Zexthara demanded. "Our scans showed they only have primitive projectile weapons and weak energy beams." "That was true 3 hours ago, sir. But they appear to have been making modifications." On the tactical display, Zexthara watched in growing alarm as the human ships opened fire. But instead of the expected primitive weapons, they were using modified Valdrath energy beams. The humans had somehow copied and improved Valdrath technology during the middle of a space battle. "How is this possible?" Krelnex asked. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the captured human transmissions was being played through the ship's communication system. It was a conversation between human engineers working frantically to upgrade their weapons. "Maria, did you get the frequency analysis from the alien beam that hit Sector 7? A male voice asked. "Yes, Tom. Uploading it to the main database now. Every ship in the fleet will have the new shield modifications within 20 minutes. "Excellent. How about the weapon modifications? Can we copy their energy beam technology?" "Better than copy it," a female voice replied. "I think we can improve it. Their weapons are very powerful, but they use too much energy. If we modify the beam focus and reduce the power draw, we can fire 3 shots for every one of theirs." "Perfect. Sending the new weapon specifications to all ships now." The transmission ended, leaving the Valdrath bridge in shocked silence. "They are modifying their technology during the battle," Zexthara said quietly. "While we are shooting at them, they are making their ships better." "Commander," the sensor officer called out, "more human ships are arriving from their inner system. But these ships are different from the others." Zexthara looked at the long-range sensors. A new group of human vessels was approaching the battle zone. These ships were larger than the first human fleet, and their design was completely different. "Those ships were not in our initial scans of the system," Krelnex observed. "Because they did not exist during our initial scans," Zexthara realized with growing dread. "They built those ships in the last few days. The human reinforcement fleet was led by a massive vessel that dwarfed the other human ships. As it approached the battle zone, it opened communication channels to both the human and Valdrath fleets. This is Captain Lisa Martinez aboard the UES Defiance. All human ships, please update your tactical systems with the new combat data we are transmitting. All enemy ships, you have one chance to surrender before we demonstrate our new weapons." Zexthara almost laughed. The humans were offering him a chance to surrender? But his laughter died when he saw what the new human ship was doing. The Defiance was not just larger than other human ships. It was built using a combination of human and Valdrath technology. Somehow, the humans had taken pieces of destroyed Valdrath equipment, studied them, and used them to build their own hybrid vessels. Captain Martinez, Zexthera transmitted back, "You are outnumbered 50-1. Your largest ship is still smaller than our smallest escort vessel. Surrender now and your people will be treated with mercy." The human captain's response was immediate. "Commander, let me show you what we learned from your technology." The Defiance opened fire with weapons that made the original Valdrath energy beams look primitive. The human ship had taken the basic Valdrath weapon design and improved it in ways the aliens had never imagined. The energy beams were faster, more focused, and far more powerful. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that the humans were not trying to destroy the Valdrath ships. They were trying to capture them. "What are they doing?" Krelnex asked as he watched human energy beams surgically strike specific targets on Valdrath vessels. "They are disabling our engines and weapons without destroying our ships," Zexthera realized. "They want to capture our technology intact." As if to confirm his fears, small human ships began attaching themselves to damaged Valdrath vessels. Through the viewports, Zexthera could see human soldiers in spacesuits cutting their way into Valdrath ships. "Sir," the communication officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the Righteous Fury. Captain Veltan says humans have boarded his ship. They are fighting their way toward the bridge." More reports came in quickly. Human boarding parties were attacking disabled Valdrath ships throughout the fleet. But they were not killing the alien crews. They were capturing them and their technology. "They are treating this like a learning experience," Zexthera said, horrified. "Every ship they capture teaches them more about how we fight." On the captured Valdrath vessel Righteous Fury, Captain Veltan found himself face to face with a human soldier. The alien captain expected to be killed or tortured. Instead, the human removed her helmet and smiled at him. "Hello," she said in accented but understandable Valdrath language. "My name is Sergeant Kim Park. We have been studying your language from your transmissions. We would like to ask you some questions about your technology." "I will tell you nothing," Veltan declared, his crystal skin glowing with defiant anger. Sergeant Park shrugged. "That is your choice. But we have already learned most of what we wanted to know by studying your ship. Your computers are not encrypted very well. We were hoping you might be willing to help us understand the more advanced systems." Veltan stared at her. "You have broken our computer codes?" "Computer codes?" Park looked confused for a moment, then laughed. "Oh, you mean your security systems?" "Yes, we figured those out about an hour ago. Human computer specialists are very good at breaking into systems that were not designed to keep out human hackers." She showed him a tablet displaying detailed information about Valdrath ship systems, weapon specifications, and fleet organization. Information that should have been completely secret. "We are not going to hurt you," Park continued. "We just want to understand why you attack other species. Maybe we can find a way to stop this war without anyone else getting killed." Back on the Eternal Dominion, Zexthera was receiving similar reports from throughout his fleet. The humans were not just defeating Valdrath forces. They were studying them, learning from them, and trying to communicate with them. "Commander," Mordeth reported weakly, "I am reading massive psychic energy from the human fleet. But it is not an attack. It is curiosity. They want to understand us." "Curiosity?" Zexthera asked. "Yes, sir. Their minds are focused on learning. They see us as a puzzle to be solved, not an enemy to be destroyed. It is unlike anything I have ever encountered." Zexthera looked out at the battle raging around his flagship. In just a few hours, these primitive humans had resisted his psychic attacks, copied his technology, built new ships, and captured a dozen of his vessels. They had turned a simple conquest into a disaster for the Valdrath Empire. But worst of all, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "Sir," Krelnex said quietly, "perhaps we should consider retreat. We can return with a larger fleet and more advanced weapons." For the first time in his long military career, Commander Zexthera was forced to consider the possibility of defeat. Not by a superior enemy, but by a species that learned faster than he could adapt. "Send a message to the Valdrath High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have encountered something new. Something dangerous." "What should I tell them, sir?" Zexthera watched as another of his ships was boarded by laughing human soldiers. Tell them we have found a species that thinks war is a learning opportunity. Emperor Vexmiran the Eternal sat on his crystal throne in the heart of Valdros Prime, reading Commander Zexthera's report for the 5th time. In his 4,000 years of life, he had never received a report like this one. The words seemed impossible, yet they came from one of his most trusted commanders. Humans, he said aloud to his empty throne room. The word felt strange in his mouth. His chief advisor, Lord Kethran the Ancient, entered the chamber with careful steps. Even by Valdrath standards, Kethran was old. He had been alive during the early days of the Empire when the Valdrath were still conquering their first 100 worlds. My Emperor, Kethran said, bowing low, I have reviewed Commander Zexthera's report. I believe there may be some mistake. Explain. The report claims that a primitive species not only resisted our psychic attacks but learned to counter them within hours. It states that they copied our technology during active combat and built new ships faster than our construction yards. Most impossible of all, it says they captured 12 of our warships without destroying them. Emperor Vexmiran stood up from his throne. His massive crystal body caught the light from the artificial suns that illuminated his palace. Are you suggesting that Commander Zexthera is lying? Not lying, my Emperor. Perhaps confused. Battle can cloud the mind. Maybe these humans used some kind of illusion or trick to make their abilities appear greater than they actually are. The Emperor walked to the great window that looked out over the capital city of Valdros Prime. Millions of Valdrath lived and worked in perfect harmony below him. For 10,000 years, this order had spread across the galaxy. Every species eventually learned to appreciate Valdrath civilization. Send a message to Fleet Admiral Morketh, the Emperor commanded. Tell him to take the 5th battle fleet to this human system. If these creatures are truly as dangerous as Zexthera claims, they must be destroyed before they can spread their influence to other species. Yes, my Emperor. How large a fleet should Admiral Morketh take?
All of it.
Every ship in the 5th Fleet. 200 of our most advanced warships. If the humans have somehow learned to fight back, we will overwhelm them with numbers they cannot possibly match. But even as he gave the order, Emperor Vexmiran felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Doubt. 3 days later, the largest Valdrath war fleet in history arrived at the edge of the human solar system. Fleet Admiral Morketh commanded the operation from his flagship, the Infinite Glory. Unlike Commander Zexthera's smaller force, this fleet was equipped with the Empire's most advanced weapons and shields. Admiral, reported Captain Dexviran, our long-range sensors are detecting massive changes in the human system since Commander Zexthera's retreat. What kind of changes? New ships, sir. Hundreds of them, and they appear to be using modified Valdrath technology. Morketh studied the sensor data with growing concern. The humans had not just repaired the damage from the first battle. They had expanded their fleet using captured Valdrath equipment. But that should have been impossible. Valdrath technology required psychic interfaces that only Valdrath minds could operate. How are they controlling our technology without psychic abilities? He wondered aloud. His science officer, a young Valdrath named Telnara, looked up from her instruments. Admiral, I am detecting something very strange. The humans appear to have developed artificial psychic interfaces. They are using computers to simulate the mental commands our technology requires. Show me. Telnara transferred her readings to the main tactical display. The image showed human ships that were clearly built using Valdrath designs, but modified in ways that made no sense to Valdrath engineers. The humans had taken advanced alien technology and somehow made it work with their primitive computer systems. This is impossible, Captain Dexviran said. Our technology is designed to be operated by living minds, not machines. Apparently, Morketh said grimly. No one told the humans that. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was working 18-hour days in her laboratory, leading a team of the planet's best scientists and engineers. The breakthrough with artificial psychic interfaces had come when they realized that Valdrath technology did not actually require psychic powers. It just required very specific types of mental commands. Think of it like a voice-activated computer, she had explained to her team. The Valdrath technology responds to thoughts, but thoughts are just electrical patterns in the brain. If we can simulate those patterns with computers, we can control their machines. Engineer Marcus Rivera had been the first to successfully interface human computers with Valdrath systems. It is like learning to speak a new language, he had said. Except instead of using our mouths, we use electrical signals that copy Valdrath brain patterns. Now, just 3 days after the first battle, Earth's shipyards were producing hybrid vessels that combined the best of human and Valdrath technology. These new ships were faster, more powerful, and more versatile than anything either species had built before. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the new flagship, U.S. Humanity's Dawn. The ship was twice the size of the Defiance and built entirely from reverse-engineered Valdrath technology. But unlike Valdrath ships, which were designed for straightforward combat, the Humanity's Dawn was equipped with systems the aliens had never imagined. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "the new Valdrath fleet is much larger than the first one. 200 ships, all of them bigger than anything we fought before." "Any communication from them?" "Yes, ma'am. They are demanding our immediate and unconditional surrender. They say they will destroy our entire system if we refuse." Admiral Chen smiled. "Send them our standard response." A few minutes later, the Valdrath fleet received a transmission that left them speechless. It was a human child, maybe 8 years old, speaking directly to Fleet Admiral Morketh. "Hello, alien people," the child said in perfect Valdrath language. "My name is Emma, and I am in 2nd grade. My mommy says you want to hurt us because we will not do what you say. That is not very nice. My teacher says that when people are mean, it is usually because they are scared or sad. Are you scared? Are you sad? Maybe we can be friends instead of fighting." The message continued with the child showing drawings she had made of humans and Valdrath playing together, sharing food and exploring space as partners. "We do not want to hurt you," Emma concluded. "But if you try to hurt us, my big sister Sarah says we will have to protect ourselves. Please think about being friends instead. Friends is more fun than fighting." Fleet Admiral Morketh stared at the transmission in complete confusion. In his long military career, he had received many responses to surrender demands. Defiance, anger, fear, desperate negotiations. But never before had a species responded to a threat of total destruction with a request for friendship from a small child. "Admiral," Captain Dex Viren said quietly, "how do we respond to this?" Before Morketh could answer, his tactical officer shouted a warning. "Sir, human ships are approaching from multiple directions. They were hiding behind their planet's moons." The tactical display lit up with dozens of human vessels emerging from concealment. But these ships were not advancing to attack. Instead, they were positioning themselves in a defensive formation around Earth. "They are not attacking us," Telnara observed. "They are protecting their home world." "Of course they are protecting it," Morketh replied. "That is what any species would do." "No, sir. I mean, they are only protecting it. Our sensors show they have weapons that could reach our fleet from their current positions, but they are not targeting us. They are simply placing themselves between us and their planet." Morketh studied the human formation. It was unlike any military strategy he had ever encountered. The humans had the firepower to attack his fleet, but instead, they were offering to defend themselves while still trying to communicate. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we are receiving another transmission from the humans. This one is from their military leader." "Put it on the main screen." Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the display. She was standing on the bridge of her flagship, surrounded by crew members of various ages and backgrounds. Unlike the rigid military hierarchy of Valdrath ships, the human bridge seemed almost casual. "Fleet Admiral Morketh," she said, "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. I know you have come here to destroy us because we refuse to surrender to your empire. I want to make you an offer." "I do not negotiate with primitives," Morketh replied. Admiral Chen smiled. "I am not asking you to negotiate. I am asking you to watch." The main screen switched to show the human shipyards orbiting Earth. Morketh watched in amazement as dozens of new ships were being constructed, using a combination of human and Valdrath technology. But that was not the most shocking part. The most shocking part was that Valdrath prisoners from the first battle were working alongside human engineers, apparently by their own choice. "The Valdrath crew members we captured have been very helpful," Admiral Chen continued. "Once we explained that we did not want to hurt them, many of them became curious about human technology. We have been learning from each other." Captain Velton has been particularly helpful in explaining how your energy weapons work. The screen showed Captain Velton working with human scientists, apparently teaching them about Valdrath engineering principles. Impossible, Captain Dex Viren whispered. Our people would never cooperate with enemies. But the evidence was right in front of them. Valdrath officers were not just cooperating with humans, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. Admiral Morketh, Admiral Chen continued, your empire has been conquering other species for 10,000 years, but you have never tried to understand them. You have never tried to learn from them. We would like to show you a different way. And if we refuse? Morketh asked. Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. Then we will defend ourselves. We do not want to fight you, but we will not let you destroy our world. We have learned much from your technology. If you force us to fight, you will discover that humans can be very creative in warfare. Fleet Admiral Morketh cut the transmission and turned to his officers. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy that did not seem to hate him. The humans appeared to genuinely want peace, but they were also clearly prepared for war. Sir, Telnara said quietly, our scans show the human fleet has weapons we have never seen before. They have taken our technology and modified it in ways our scientists never considered. Are you saying we cannot defeat them? I am saying, sir, that if we attack them, we will learn exactly how creative humans can be. And based on what they accomplished with just 3 days to prepare, I do not think we will enjoy the lesson. Morketh looked out at the human fleet. 200 of the Empire's best ships against perhaps 50 human vessels. By all military logic, the Valdrath should win easily. But logic seemed to have very little to do with humans. Send a message to Emperor Vexmiran, he ordered. Tell him we need to discuss our strategy for dealing with this species. For the second time in Valdrath history, a fleet admiral was about to recommend retreat from a primitive species. But this time, the humans had not even attacked yet. Emperor Vexmiran had made his decision. If 2 of his fleets could not handle one primitive species, he would use the ultimate weapon of the Valdrath Empire. For the first time in 3,000 years, he was going to activate the Great Mind. The Great Mind was built into the core of Valdros Prime itself. It was a massive psychic amplifier that could connect every Valdrath in the galaxy into a single, overwhelming mental force. When activated, it could destroy the minds of entire civilizations across dozens of star systems at once. It was the weapon that had ended the last great war against the Valdrath Empire. My Emperor, Lord Ketharan said nervously, are you certain this is necessary? The reports from Fleet Admiral Morketh suggest that the humans are willing to negotiate. They are not willing to surrender, the Emperor replied, standing before the Great Mind's control chamber. That is the same thing as declaring war against the entire galaxy. I will not allow one species to threaten 10,000 years of peace and order. The control chamber was filled with hundreds of the Empire's most powerful psychic officers. Each one was connected to the Great Mind through crystal interfaces that amplified their mental abilities 1,000 times over. When they worked together, their combined psychic force could reach across the galaxy instantly. Begin the activation sequence, Emperor Vexmiran commanded. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was working late in her laboratory when every alarm in the building started going off at once. Her instruments were detecting psychic energy levels that were impossible to measure. Whatever the Valdrath were doing, it was bigger than anything they had tried before. Sarah, Dr. James Park burst into the room. We are getting readings from across the galaxy. Every human colony, every research station, every ship is reporting the same thing. Massive psychic energy building up from the direction of Valdrath space. Dr. Chen looked at her computer screens in horror. The energy levels were increasing every second. James, this is not just an attack on Earth. They are targeting every human in the galaxy at once. How is that possible? It is not just possible, Dr. Chen said grimly. They are doing it. We need to warn everyone immediately. Admiral Sarah Chen received the warning just as the psychic attack reached Earth's solar system. Unlike the previous Valdrath mental assaults, this one was not subtle. It hit human minds like a massive wave trying to wash away every thought, every memory, every emotion. All ships, she broadcast to the human fleet, prepare for massive psychic assault. Use everything we learned from the previous attacks. Focus on chaotic thoughts, creative ideas, and strong emotions. But as the Great Mind's power reached full strength, Admiral Chen realized that their previous defenses might not be enough. This attack was not trying to control human minds. It was trying to destroy them completely. On Valdros Prime, Emperor Vexmiran watched the Great Mind's progress with satisfaction. Across the galaxy, reports were coming in of human colonies falling silent. The primitive species that had dared to resist the Empire was finally being taught its place. "My Emperor," reported the lead psychic officer, "the attack is proceeding as planned. Human resistance is collapsing across all targeted systems." But then something strange happened. Instead of the complete silence that usually followed a Great Mind attack, the psychic officers began receiving something unexpected from human space. Music. It started quietly, just a few human voices singing together. But it grew stronger every second as more humans joined in. Soon, millions of human minds were connected not by technology but by something far more powerful. They were connected by hope. "What is happening?" Emperor Vexmiran demanded. "The humans," the psychic officer said in confusion. "They are not being destroyed by the attack. They are using it to connect with each other." On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen had made a discovery that changed everything. As the Great Mind's attack had grown stronger, human minds had begun working together in ways they never had before. The psychic pressure was forcing humans to share thoughts, memories, and emotions across the planet. "It is like they built us a telephone system," she explained to her sister over their communication link. "Their psychic network is designed to destroy organized minds. But human minds are not organized. When they connect us together, our chaos becomes even more chaotic. Instead of destroying us, they are making us stronger." Admiral Sarah Chen could feel it happening. The thoughts and creativity of every human in the solar system were flowing through her mind. She could sense the determination of farmers on Mars, the curiosity of scientists on the moon, and the love of parents protecting their children on Earth. "All human ships," she said, and her voice carried not just through radio waves but through the psychic connection the Valdrath had accidentally created. "We are going to show them what happens when you connect 8 billion human minds together." The response was immediate. Every human in the solar system focused their thoughts on a single idea. Not hatred or revenge, but something the Valdrath had never encountered in 10,000 years of conquest. Forgiveness. On Valdros Prime, the psychic officers connected to the Great Mind began screaming. The chaotic beauty of human consciousness was flooding through the carefully organized Valdrath psychic network. But instead of the fear and pain they were used to inflicting, they were experiencing human emotions they could not understand. A Valdrath officer felt a human mother's love for her newborn child. Another experienced the joy of human friends laughing together. A third was overwhelmed by the memory of a human couple dancing at their wedding. "Stop the attack," Emperor Vexmiran shouted, but it was too late. The Great Mind was not designed to handle the complexity of human emotions. As millions of human minds shared their thoughts through the psychic network, the ancient machine began to overload. Crystals that had amplified Valdrath mental power for centuries began to crack and shatter. "My Emperor," the lead psychic officer gasped. "The network is collapsing. The humans are not just resisting the attack, they are destroying it with their thoughts." Across the Valdrath Empire, the psychic network that had connected their civilization for 10 millennia went silent. For the first time in their history, the Valdrath could not speak to each other mind to mind. They were alone in their own thoughts. Emperor Vexmiran staggered back from the ruined Great Mind, his crystal body dim and lifeless. Without the psychic network, he felt smaller, weaker, and more confused than he had in thousands of years. "What have we done?" he whispered. The answer came from an unexpected source. A human transmission reached Valdros Prime, traveling through normal space communication systems. It was Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking directly to the Valdrath Emperor. "Emperor Vexmiran," she said gently, "we know you can hear this. We know your psychic network has been damaged. We want you to know that we did not mean to hurt you. We were only trying to protect ourselves." The Emperor looked around his ruined control chamber. His most powerful psychic officers were unconscious or weeping from the emotional overload they had experienced. The Great Mind, the ultimate weapon of the Valdrath Empire, was a pile of broken crystals. "We know you are afraid," Admiral Chen continued. For 10,000 years you have been the most powerful species in the galaxy. Now you have met someone different, and that is scary. We understand fear. Humans are afraid of many things. The transmission continued with something that shocked the Emperor even more than the destruction of his ultimate weapon. We would like to help you rebuild your psychic network, not as a weapon, but as a way for your people to connect with each other and with other species. We have learned much about psychic technology in the last few days. We think we can make something better than what you had before. Emperor Vex Miran found his voice. Why would you help us after what we tried to do to you? Admiral Chen's response was immediate. Because that is what people do when they are not afraid of each other. They help. 3 months later, Emperor Vex Miran stood in the same chamber where the Great Mind had once been. But now, instead of a weapon designed to destroy other minds, there was something entirely new. Humans and Valdrath had worked together to build a psychic network that could connect different species without harming them. The Emperor was no longer alone in his thoughts. He could sense the minds of his people across the galaxy, but he could also sense something new. Human thoughts, chaotic and creative and full of possibilities he had never imagined. Emperor, said a familiar voice behind him. He turned to see Admiral Sarah Chen, who had come to Valdros Prime as Earth's first ambassador to the Valdrath Empire. She was accompanied by Captain Velton, who had chosen to serve as a bridge between their two species. Admiral Chen, the Emperor said, still getting used to speaking aloud instead of communicating through psychic links. How is the new network functioning? Better than we hoped, she replied with a smile. Your people are teaching us about advanced technology, and we are teaching them about adaptability and creativity. Some of the innovations we have created together are amazing. Captain Velton nodded. My Emperor, the humans have shown us that there are other ways to grow an empire. Instead of conquering species, we can invite them to join us as partners. Several worlds that we once ruled through fear are now asking to participate in our new alliance. Emperor Vex Miran looked out through the great window at his capital city. The rigid order of Valdrath society was changing. In the streets below, he could see Valdrath and humans working together, learning from each other. I spent 4,000 years believing that order and control were the only ways to create peace, he said quietly. The humans have taught me that chaos and creativity can be just as powerful. Admiral Chen placed a gentle hand on the Emperor's crystal arm. Not just as powerful, more powerful. When different minds work together, they can solve problems that no single species could handle alone. The Emperor nodded slowly. For the first time in his very long life, he was looking forward to the future instead of trying to control it. Admiral, he said, there are many species in the galaxy that have never experienced freedom. They have been part of our empire for so long that they do not remember what it was like to make their own choices. Will you help us teach them what you taught us? Admiral Chen smiled. Emperor, we would be honored to help. But remember, we did not teach you anything. We just showed you what was already inside your people. The capacity for growth, for change, for hope. Every species has these things. They just need the freedom to use them. As the two leaders looked out at the changing galaxy, neither of them noticed the small figure watching from the doorway. It was Emma, the human child who had sent the first message of friendship to the Valdrath fleet. She was now 8.5 years old and had become something of a celebrity among both species. Are they going to be friends now? She asked Captain Velton. The Valdrath officer smiled, an expression he had learned from humans. Yes, little one. I think they are going to be very good friends. Emma nodded seriously. Good. Friends is always better than fighting. And in the end, that simple truth from a human child had changed the galaxy forever. The Valdrath Empire still existed, but it was no longer an empire of conquest. It had become an alliance of species working together, learning from each other and exploring the galaxy as partners rather than rulers and subjects. The humans had been right about one thing. They were not invincible. But as it turned out, neither was anyone else. And that was exactly what made the galaxy beautiful.